Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Do you believe in ghosts? I didn't until I found out there was one in the Bible. Now, I'm not a ghost chaser. I don't really get into the haunted stories. I do like history. And when we were in California, we came upon the Winchester Mystery House, which fascinated me. Sarah Winchester had a family fortune from the rifle industry. She had a mansion that was built to very strange specifications. For example, she had a few staircases built that led absolutely nowhere, just into the ceiling. She had one door built on a floor a few stories up, but if you stepped outside it, you'd literally be in midair outside of the house. It didn't go to a room, it went straight to the outdoors. You had to have a guide to get through the house because it's incredibly confusing. It just seems to have no rhyme or reason to it. Legend says that she was haunted by ghosts, and she had the house built to confuse the spirits so that they didn't know how to get around the house either. Apparently, there have been some ghostly encounters there, but I have a much more ordinary reason in mind for why she had this mansion built. I believe she had a good relationship with the workers who built her house, and she kept giving them things to do just to keep them employed and to keep herself company. But people love a chilling tale, and I think that's why the ghost stories live on. It's that season where the days get grayer and there's more of a chill in the air. There are colorful leaves and there's pumpkins everywhere, and whether you love them or hate them, it's the season for spooky stories. Hey, this is Jen. You're listening to The Bible for Busy People, and the Bible actually contains a number of spooky and supernatural tales. And you know what? They're important. They remind us of a supernatural battle that we can't see, one we don't need to dabble in. They also remind us of God's sovereignty over this world, including the supernatural, and the final victory in the end days of this world. They remind us that God doesn't always work the way we assume, and also, importantly, that God will not be mocked. This week, we're going to be talking about some of those spooky stories. And again, I ask, did you know that there's actually a ghost in the Bible? It's a powerful story. This is in 1 Samuel chapter 28. Starting in verse 3, it says, "Now Samuel was dead, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in his own town of Ramah. Saul had expelled the mediums and spiritists from the land. The Philistines assembled and came and set up camp at Shunem, while Saul gathered all Israel and set up camp at Gilboa. When Saul saw the Philistine army, he was afraid. Terror filled his heart. He inquired of the Lord, but the Lord did not answer him by dreams or Urim or prophets. Saul then said to his attendants, 'Find me a woman who is a medium, so I may go and inquire of her.' 'There is one in Endor,' they said. So Saul disguised himself, putting on other clothes, and at night he and 2 men went to the woman. 'Consult a spirit for me,' he said, 'and bring up for me the one I name.' But the woman said to him, 'Surely you know what Saul has done. He has cut off the mediums and spiritists from the land. Why have you set a trap for my life to bring about my death?' Saul swore to her by the Lord, 'As surely as the Lord lives, you will not be punished for this.' Then the woman asked, 'Whom shall I bring up for you?' 'Bring up Samuel,' he said. When the woman saw Samuel, she cried out at the top of her voice and said to Saul, 'Why have you deceived me? You are Saul.' The king said to her, 'Don't be afraid. What do you see?' The woman said, 'I see a ghostly figure coming up out of the earth.' 'What does he look like?' he asked. 'An old man wearing a robe is coming up,' she said. Then Saul knew it was Samuel. I don't know why. That doesn't sound very specific to me. And he bowed down and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. Samuel said to Saul, 'Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?' 'I am in great distress,' Saul said. 'The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has departed from me. He no longer answers me, either by prophets or by dreams, so I have called on you to tell me what to do.' Samuel said, 'Why do you consult me now that the Lord has departed from you and become your enemy? The Lord has done what he predicted through me. The Lord has torn the kingdom out of your hands and given it to one of your neighbors, to David. Because you did not obey the Lord or carry out his fierce wrath against the Amalekites, the Lord has done this to you today. The Lord will deliver both Israel and you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your sons will be with me.' The Lord will also give the army of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Immediately Saul fell full length on the ground, filled with fear because of Samuel's words. His strength was gone, for he had eaten nothing all that day and all that night. When the woman came to Saul and saw that he was greatly shaken, she said, "Look, your servant has obeyed you. I took my life in my hands and did what you told me to do. Now please listen to your servant and let me give you some food so you may eat and have strength to go on your way." What do we know about this cast of characters? Well, we know that Samuel was Hannah's firstborn, and he was a child that she begged God for. He was a godly and truth-telling prophet, the one who named Saul king, and then told him that God had rejected him as king for his disobedience in battle. Then he anointed David instead. So Saul was in a bad position. The Philistines were getting ready to attack Israel, and although he went to inquire of the Lord, as was the proper way to approach a battle, God was not speaking to Saul. God had already cut Saul off because of Saul's disobedience. He was afraid of the battle ahead, and so he did something God did not condone, speaking with the dead. He had already eliminated the mediums and spiritists from the land. This is according to Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 9 through 13. When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, do not learn to imitate the detestable ways of the nations there. Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft or casts spells, or who is a medium or spiritist, or who consults the dead. Anyone who does this is detestable to the Lord. Because of these same detestable practices, the Lord your God will drive out those nations before you. You must be blameless before the Lord your God. This is why we don't mess with the spiritual world. It's detestable to God. It exists and it's there, but God doesn't want us to mess with it. And Saul goes even further into sin against even what he used to believe and the convictions that he used to hold to. Saul himself had gotten rid of all the mediums and spiritists in the area. He had to track one down, disguise himself, and promise her no harm would come to her for going against the king. Immediately when she speaks to Samuel, though, she knows she's been speaking with the king. From what we can gather, Saul can't see Samuel. Again, she describes him and he says, "Oh, that must be Samuel," because it's an old man in a robe. But I think it's likely that the woman is communicating on behalf of Samuel. And Samuel re-emphasizes what he said in life. God has rejected Saul as king. He didn't have the right to an answer from God. Samuel had warned him that the Philistines would win and Saul and his sons would die. There's no humility here. There's no repentance. There's only acting out of fear. Saul continued to go against God with detestable practices instead of turning toward God. So this isn't so much about the ghostly part of the story, as creepy as it may be. It's much more about what we are willing to do to outrun our fear or to continue in our pride instead of turning back to God with humility. It also says to me that there is a spiritual world, but it's detestable to God for us to play with it, trying to speak to the dead or engage in any kind of otherworldly practices. Let's leave that to God and stay in the land of the living. Jesus even tells us that God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So there you go. That's your first kind of spooky-ish story of the day. And I do feel like these stories are important. I'm excited to look into these a little bit more, and I will talk with you again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.